The shell hits at 1400 hours. Japanese cruiser 8,000 yards off our starboard beam, firing at our destroyer with 8-inch guns. Most rounds miss, plunging into the ocean, sending up geysers of water. But one finds us, penetrates the hull just aft of amidships, explodes in the engine room. I'm in the wardroom when the impact throws me against the bulkhead, alarm klaxon screaming, damage control reports flooding through the intercom. Then the call I'd been dreading since we deployed. Medical emergency, engine room, multiple casualties, corpsman to engine room immediately. I grab my medical bag, already running, pushing through narrow passages toward the damage, other sailors pressing against bulkheads to let me pass. The engine room is chaos, smoke and steam, flooding water ankle deep, 3 men down, the damage control party working frantically to contain the breach. I see them immediately. 2 sailors clearly dead, shrapnel wounds incompatible with life. And James, my childhood friend in Ohio, who joined the Navy with me in '41, who's been in my division since we shipped out, who I've shared coffee with every morning for 3 years. His leg is a disaster. I can see it even through the smoke and poor lighting. Compound fracture, bone protruding, major vessels severed, the deck around him slick with his blood. He's conscious, eyes wide open with shock and pain, and when he sees me, he says my name. "Doc, Doc, please, my leg. I can't feel my leg." I kneel beside him, do quick assessment, checking vitals, assessing the damage, and my heart sinks because I know what this means. The leg is unsalvageable. Too much tissue damage, too much bone destroyed, too much vascular compromise. Even in a proper hospital with full surgical team, this leg would require amputation, and we're on a destroyer in the middle of the Pacific, 5 days from port. No helicopter evacuation, no transfer possible. I have to make the call right here, right now, with James watching my face, reading my expression, understanding before I say it. "James, your leg, it's bad, really bad. I need to get you to Sickbay, need to stabilize you." He grips my arm, surprisingly strong despite the shock, and asks the question I don't want to answer. "Doc, am I gonna lose it? Am I gonna lose my leg?" I can't lie to him. We've known each other too long, shared too much. "Yeah, buddy. Yeah, you are. But I'm gonna get you through this, I promise. You're gonna survive." The corpsmen arrive. We get James on a stretcher, carefully extracting him from the machinery, his screams echoing through the engine room as movement jostles the shattered leg. We carry him to Sickbay, the small medical compartment that serves as our hospital, lay him on the surgical table bolted to the deck. I cut away his pants, expose the full extent of the damage, and it's worse than I thought. The shell fragment didn't just break the bone, it destroyed the knee joint, tore through the femoral artery, left the lower leg hanging by tissue and tendon. No question about amputation, only question is how high, how much leg I have to take to get to healthy tissue. I give him morphine, all I can spare, but it's not enough for surgery, not nearly enough, just enough to take the edge off. James looks at me, understands, asks when I'm going to do it. Soon, buddy, soon as I get set up, soon as the storm passes. But the storm isn't passing. Tropical cyclone forming. Ship starting to pitch and roll. And James's leg is dying. Gangrene setting in already in the tropical heat. James and I met in 1926, both 7 years old. Neighbors in a small Ohio town. Became instant friends the way kids do. We did everything together. School, sports, mischief. Inseparable through childhood and adolescence. His father worked at the steel mill. My father was doctor. But that didn't matter to us. We were just friends. I was the studious one, always reading, fascinated by medicine, wanted to follow my father into practice. James was athletic, natural talent for baseball. Could have played professionally if history hadn't intervened. We graduated high school in 1937. Both knew what came next, even though neither wanted to say it. War was coming. Everyone could see it. And young men like us would be needed. I went to medical school, 4 years of intense study. Graduated in '41, just as Pearl Harbor brought America into the war. James enlisted immediately after Pearl Harbor. Navy recruit, wanted to serve, wanted to fight. I joined Navy Medical Corps, commissioned as lieutenant, assigned to destroyers because they needed surgeons at sea. By coincidence, or fate, James was assigned to same destroyer, USS Fletcher, DD-445. We hadn't seen each other in 4 years. Medical school kept me busy, but reunion was like no time had passed. He was a gunner's mate, I was the ship's surgeon. Different ranks, different jobs, but same friendship. We'd have coffee in the wardroom when schedules allowed. Talk about home, about Ohio, about the lives we'd returned to after the war. He was engaged to a girl back home, Sarah. Planning to marry her when he got leave, asking my advice about everything. I was already married, wife Eleanor back in Ohio with our infant daughter, missing them desperately but doing my duty. James and I made a pact. We'd both survive this war, both go home, raise our families as neighbors, like we'd planned as kids. Simple dream, modest ambition, just survival and normalcy and continuing the friendship that defined our lives. The ship deployed to the Pacific in '42, participated in Guadalcanal campaign, saw heavy action. I treated dozens of wounded sailors, got good at emergency medicine, learned to work in impossible conditions. James manned his gun mount during every battle, came through unscathed. We joked that he was invincible, that nothing could touch him. By '44, we'd survived 2 years of Pacific combat, seen ships sink, lost shipmates, but stayed alive ourselves. Started believing we'd make it, beat the odds, go home together, just like we'd planned as kids. And that Japanese shell found our ship, found the engine room where James happened to be checking equipment, found him, specifically, out of 300 men. The randomness of it, the cruel lottery of war, 1 shell, 8 inches of steel explosive, ending James's dream of baseball and marriage and normal life. Now he's on my surgical table, leg destroyed, gangrene starting, storm building, and I'm the one who has to cut. Not some stranger surgeon, not some doctor who doesn't know him. Me, his best friend, the one he trusts most in the world, the one who has to hurt him, to save him, to take his leg, because keeping it means death. I spend 2 hours preparing for surgery, gathering supplies, sterilizing instruments as best I can, preparing myself mentally for what I have to do. The storm intensifies, ship rolling 20 degrees, making surgical precision nearly impossible, but I can't wait. The gangrene is visible now, tissue around the wound turning gray then black, characteristic smell of necrotic flesh filling sickbay. I've seen gangrene before, treated it in other patients, know how fast it spreads, know that hours matter. If I wait for the storm to pass, if I wait for calmer seas, James dies. Sepsis kills him before we reach port. So I have to operate now, in the storm, with minimal anesthesia, while the ship pitches and rolls beneath us. I call my corpsman, 2 experienced enlisted men who've assisted me in dozens of surgeries, brief them on what we're doing. They're professional, competent, but I see concern in their eyes. They know this is different, know this is my friend on the table. I explain the procedure, mid-thigh amputation. Need to get above the knee to reach healthy tissue, need to cut through femur, need to ligate major vessels before the patient bleeds out. They nod, understand, start setting up restraints because James will fight this. Conscious patients always fight. I go to James, sit beside his bunk where we've moved him for prep, hold his hand like I've held it since we were kids. James, I need to do this now. Can't wait. The infection is spreading. If I wait, you die. He nods, trying to be brave, but I can see the fear in his eyes, the understanding of what's coming. How bad is it going to hurt, Doc? How bad without anesthesia? I can't sugarcoat this. Won't lie to my friend. It's gonna hurt, James. Gonna hurt worse than anything you've ever felt, but I'll be as quick as I can, and you'll survive. You'll get through this. He asks about morphine, how much I can spare him, and I show him the syringe. This is all I can spare. Need to save some for post-op. Need to keep you alive after. He understands, knows I'm making impossible choices, trying to balance pain management with survival. I give him a leather strap to bite, old field surgery technique, something to focus on besides the pain. Ask him if he wants to say anything before we start, before the morphine takes the edge off his consciousness. He asks me to write to Sarah, tell her I love her, tell her he's sorry he won't be able to dance at their wedding. I promise I'll write, promise I'll tell her everything, except the parts that would give her nightmares. The corpsmen strap him to the table, leather restraints across chest and hips and the good leg, holding him immobile, because thrashing during surgery could kill him. I inject the morphine, watch it take effect, see James's breathing slow slightly, pain reducing from unbearable to merely agonizing. He looks at me, his best friend, and says, "Do it, Doc. I trust you. I know you'll save me." Those words, that trust, it makes this harder, not easier. The weight of his faith in me, crushing. I pick up the scalpel, position myself at the table, the ship rolling beneath us, and I make the first incision.
The moment the blade cuts skin, James screams. Morphine dulls pain but doesn't eliminate it, and cutting through living tissue triggers every nerve, every pain receptor, every survival instinct. He screams my name. "Doc, stop. Please stop. God, please stop." And I have to continue. I have to keep cutting. The corpsmen hold him, maintain restraints, prevent him from thrashing off the table as ship rolls. I cut through skin, through subcutaneous fat, exposing the muscle layer, blood welling immediately, despite tourniquet on upper thigh. My hands are steady, years of training overriding emotion, but inside I'm screaming too, hating myself for causing this pain. The surgical technique is straightforward. Create anterior and posterior flaps, section muscles, ligate major vessels, cut through femur, close flaps over stump. But doing it while my best friend screams, while ship pitches violently, while storm rages outside, nothing straightforward about this. I section the quadriceps, the massive anterior thigh muscles, cutting through fibers that carried James through 20 years of running and jumping and living. Each cut produces fresh screaming, James begging me to stop, promising anything if I'll just stop cutting. But I can't stop. Stopping means death, means gangrene spreading, means sepsis and organ failure and burial at sea. So I keep cutting, keep working. Tears streaming down my face behind surgical mask, but hands never wavering. The ship rolls hard to starboard, 20-degree list. I brace against the table, maintain position. Can't let the scalpel slip or cut wrong vessel or he bleeds out. My corpsmen are professionals, anticipating needs, handing instruments, suctioning blood, maintaining exposure, doing their jobs despite the horror. I reach the femoral artery, the major vessel supplying blood to the leg. Need to ligate it before cutting bone or James exsanguinates. Double tie with silk suture, standard surgical technique, ensuring the vessel won't retract and bleed after amputation. The artery pulses under my fingers. James's heartbeat transmitted through tissue, a reminder that I'm operating on a living human being, on my friend. I clamp, tie, cut. The artery separates. Blood flow to the dying leg stops. The femoral vein next, larger, harder to control, but I manage. Tie it off, prevent venous bleeding. Now comes the worst part. Cutting through bone, through the femur, one of the strongest bones in human body. I position the surgical saw. This is gonna hurt him worse than anything so far. James, this is gonna be bad, buddy. Really bad, but it's almost over. Just hold on. He's nearly incoherent from pain, morphine and shock combining, but he hears me, nods slightly, bites down harder on the leather strap. I start sawing, through cortical bone, through marrow, the sound filling sickbay, grinding metal on calcium. James's screaming reaches new intensity, inhuman sounds, animal agony. I'm torturing my best friend to save him. The corpsmen hold him down, prevent violent thrashing, maintain surgical field despite ship's movement and patient struggle. The saw breaks through, the femur separates. The lower leg now attached only by posterior tissues. I section the remaining muscle, cut through final connective tissue, and the leg comes free. 20 years of James's life severed in 40 minutes of surgery. One corpsman takes the amputated limb, bags it for burial at sea. We'll commit it to the ocean with proper ceremony later.
Now the critical part. creating viable stump, closing skin flaps, ensuring James has functional residual limb that can eventually support prosthetic. A trim muscle, ensure adequate soft tissue coverage over bone, shape the stump for optimal healing. The storm continues, ship pitching and rolling. I'm braced against table, using body weight to maintain position while hands work. My back aches, my arms shake from tension, but I continue. Can't stop until this is done right. I debride necrotic tissue, remove dead muscle, ensure only healthy, viable tissue remains. The smell is terrible. Gangrene mixed with blood, with cauterized flesh, with fierce sweat, the smell that will haunt me forever. James has stopped screaming, passed out from pain, mercy of unconsciousness. But his body still responds, muscles twitching, heart racing. I check vitals, pulse thready but present, blood pressure low but adequate. He's in shock but surviving. The corpsmen irrigate the wound, flush with saline, removing debris and contaminated tissue. I start closing, bringing anterior and posterior flaps together, ensuring no dead space where infection can grow. Deep sutures first, absorbable catgut, securing muscle to muscle, creating stable platform. The ship rolls hard. I nearly lose my grip on needle holder, catch myself, maintain sterile field. Superficial sutures next. Silk, closing skin, creating clean closure that will heal well if infection doesn't set in. 47 stitches. I count them, each one a mark of what I've done, what I've taken from my friend. The final stitch goes in. I tie it, cut, step back. The amputation is complete. 43 minutes, from first incision to final stitch. 43 minutes of hell for James. 43 minutes that changed us both forever. I dress the stump, sterile gauze, compression bandage, elevate the limb to reduce swelling. Start IV fluids, antibiotics, more morphine now that surgery is complete. Everything I can do to prevent infection and manage pain. James starts waking, groggy, confused, reaches down instinctively, finds nothing below mid-thigh. The moment of realization, of understanding, of grief. His eyes open fully. Look at me. Doc, it's gone. My leg is really gone. Not a question, a statement, acknowledgement of new reality. I sit beside him, hold his hand, let him process. Yeah, buddy, it's gone, but you're alive. You're gonna survive. You're gonna go home to Sarah. He starts crying, not from pain, though that's still there, from loss, from understanding what his life will be now. One-legged man, disabled veteran, a different future than he'd imagined. No baseball, no dancing, no normal life. I cried too, finally letting myself feel it, the weight of what I've done, taken my friend's leg to save his life. The corpsmen clean up, dispose of bloody gauze, sterilize instruments, professional, through their own emotional responses. The storm continues outside. Ship still rolling, but in sickbay we've achieved fragile stability. James is alive, leg amputated above the infection, antibiotics flowing, pain managed enough that he can bear it. I've done my job, surgeon's duty, saved life through mutilation, but friendship cost, relationship cost, those are still unclear, still unresolved.
The next 3 days are critical. Monitoring for infection, managing pain, watching James hover between life and death. The fever comes on day 2, his body fighting contamination, fighting shock, fighting the massive trauma. I pump him full of antibiotics, the new sulfur drugs that are saving lives, change dressings twice daily, check for signs of spreading infection. The stump looks good. Clean closure, no necrosis, no red streaking indicating sepsis, just normal post-surgical inflammation. But James is struggling, physically and mentally. The amputation. The next 3 days are critical. Monitoring for infection, managing pain, watching James hover between life and death. The fever comes on day 2, his body fighting contamination, fighting shock, fighting the massive trauma. I pump him full of antibiotics, the new sulfur drugs that are saving lives, change dressings twice daily, check for signs of spreading infection. The stump looks good, clean closure, no necrosis, no red streaking indicating sepsis, just normal post-surgical inflammation. But James is struggling, physically and mentally. The amputation breaking something in him that antibiotics can't fix. He won't talk to me, turns his face away when I check the wound, acknowledges my presence with silence. The corpsmen handle basic care, the physical nursing that keeps him alive, while I monitor medical progress and feel friendship dying. 3rd day, the fever breaks, temperature normalizing, vitals stabilizing, physical crisis passing. I sit beside his bunk, try to talk to him, try to bridge the distance that's opened. James, buddy, talk to me. I know you're angry. I know you hate what I did, but I saved your life. He finally looks at me, eyes hollow, voice flat. You cut off my leg, Doc. You held me down while I screamed and you cut off my leg. The accusation, the pain, it cuts deeper than any surgical blade. I had to. You know I had to. Gangrene would have killed you. You would have died in agony. He knows. Intellectually he knows, but emotionally he's not there yet. Can't reconcile the friend he trusted with the surgeon who mutilated him. I asked you to stop. I begged you. I screamed your name and you kept cutting. This is the wound I can't suture, the damage I can't repair, the cost of saving his life. Yeah, I did, because stopping would have killed you, because friendship meant saving you, even if you hate me for it. We sit in silence, storm finally passing outside, seas calming, but nothing calm between us. Over the following days, James starts physical recovery, eating, regaining strength, learning to balance with one leg. But emotional recovery lags. He's withdrawn, depressed, talking about how Sarah won't want him now, how his life is over at 25. I try counseling him, try being encouraging, but I'm also the one who caused this. My reassurances ring hollow.
The ship reaches port on day 7. Proper medical facilities finally available, and I transfer James to hospital ship. The Navy doctors examine him, review my surgical notes, compliment the amputation, say I did excellent work under impossible conditions. But excellent work doesn't heal friendship, doesn't erase trauma, doesn't make James whole again. I visit him in hospital. He's polite but distant. The easy companionship of 20 years replaced with formal courtesy. I try apologizing. He stops me. "Don't apologize, Doc. You did your job. You saved me. I'm alive because of you. I know that. But knowing and feeling are different things. He knows I saved him, but feels I mutilated him. Both true simultaneously. I get new orders, transferred to another ship, leaving James in hospital recovering. Our goodbye is awkward. Handshake instead of hug. Platitudes instead of real conversation. Take care, James. Finish recovering. Get home to Sarah and live your life." He nods, thanks me formally, and I walk away, wondering if I've lost my best friend to save his life. The war continues. I serve on 2 more destroyers, treat hundreds more casualties, but none affect me like James. I can't stop thinking about him, about the amputation, about his screaming, about the look in his eyes afterward. I question the decision endlessly. Was amputation really necessary? Could I have saved the leg? Did I act too quickly? But I know, medically I know, that leg was dead. Gangrene would have killed him. I made the only choice possible. Knowing doesn't help, doesn't ease the guilt, doesn't restore friendship. I write to him, letters sent through Navy mail system, trying to maintain connection, trying to rebuild what's broken. His responses are brief, factual updates about recovery, learning to use prosthetic, preparing for discharge. No warmth, no friendship, just information, like I'm stranger rather than person he's known since childhood. War ends in 45. I return to Ohio, resume civilian life, plan to return to medical practice. James returned home 6 months earlier, married Sarah in a simple ceremony, living with his parents while adjusting to disability. I want to visit, want to see him, want to try rebuilding, but I'm afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of facing what I did. My wife Eleanor encourages me, says friendship is worth fighting for, says James needs me, whether he knows it or not. So I go, drive to his parents' house, knock on the door. His mother answers. She hugs me, thanks me profusely, says she saved her son's life, says they're eternally grateful. But when I ask to see James, she hesitates, says he's in the garage, says he spends a lot of time there alone. I find him working on car engine. One-legged man, balanced awkwardly, prosthetic leg visible below rolled-up pant leg. "Hey, James. Thought I'd stop by." He turns, surprise on his face, then guardedness. "Doc, didn't know you were back." We talk awkwardly, small talk about weather and baseball, avoiding the real conversation. Finally, I can't take it anymore. "James, are we going to talk about it? About the amputation? About what happened between us? He sets down the wrench, faces me, and I see pain in his eyes that has nothing to do with missing leg. What do you want me to say, Doc? That I forgive you? That I'm glad you cut off my leg? I want you to understand why I had to do it, why I kept cutting even when you begged me to stop. He's quiet, processing, then speaks. I do understand. Intellectually, I understand. You saved my life. I'd be dead if you'd stopped. But I also remember screaming your name. Remember looking at my best friend and seeing surgeon, seeing professional detachment, seeing someone who could hurt me that badly and not stop. The truth laid bare. The cost of medical professionalism. The price of saving life. I'm sorry, James. Sorry for the pain. Sorry for what I took from you. But I'm not sorry you're alive.
The months after that first visit are difficult, trying to rebuild friendship from ruins, finding new foundation. James struggles with civilian life. The leg isn't the only wound. He has nightmares, startle reactions, symptoms we now call PTSD, but didn't have name for then. Sarah is patient, loving, helps him adjust, but she can't reach places inside him that the war damaged. I visit regularly, partly from friendship, partly for medical concern, partly from guilt that drives me. Slowly, very slowly, we start talking about the amputation, about the surgery, about what it meant. James admits he'd been dreaming about it, reliving it, the sensation of cutting, the helplessness, the betrayal he felt. Betrayal? You felt I betrayed you? I trusted you, Doc, trusted you more than anyone, and you hurt me worse than anyone ever has. The words sting, but I need to hear them, need to understand his perspective. I hurt you to save you. That's what medicine is sometimes, controlled injury to prevent death. Yeah, but it's different when it's your best friend doing it, when the person you trust most in the world is causing the pain. We work through it slowly, talking about trust and duty and impossible choices, about friendship tested in the worst possible way. He starts to understand, really understand, that I suffered too, that cutting him hurt me almost as much as it hurt him. You were crying, Doc, during the surgery. I remember through the pain. I remember seeing tears on your face. Yeah, I was. Every cut, every scream, it tore me apart. But I couldn't stop. Stopping meant losing you. This conversation, this acknowledgement of mutual pain, it starts healing process. James begins to see the surgery differently, not as mutilation, but as desperate measure, not as betrayal, but as ultimate expression of friendship. You could have let someone else do it, Doc, could have refused, said you were too close to operate. There was no one else. I was the only surgeon. And even if there were, I wouldn't have trusted them with you. He understands that finally, understands that I took the burden myself because I loved him, because friendship meant I bore the cost. We start doing things together again. Going to baseball games, though James can't play.
working on cars in his garage, rebuilding the easy companionship we'd had. It's different now, marked by what we went through, but maybe deeper, based on surviving worst test friendship can face. James gets a job at a manufacturing plant, works on assembly line despite his disability, contributes to society, builds a normal life. Sarah becomes pregnant and 47. They have a son, name him after James's father, start building family. I open medical practice in Ohio, become local doctor, treat the community, including James and his family. Life moves forward. War recedes into memory. But that surgery never leaves me. I think about it every day. The decision, the cutting, the screaming, the look in James's eyes. But I also think about the fact that James is alive, raising his son, living life the amputation made possible.
The 1950s bring prosperity and normalcy. We're both settled into civilian life, raising families, building careers. James and Sarah have 3 more children, 2 daughters and another son, all healthy, all growing up with a father who survived war. My practice thrives. I become a respected physician, known for skill and compassion. But patients don't know what that compassion cost. James and I are friends again, real friends, not just going through the motions, but genuinely close. We talk about the amputation sometimes, when we're alone, when defenses are down. He admits that hating me was easier than accepting what happened, that blame gave him a target for grief about his leg. I admit that guilt drove me for years, that I questioned the decision constantly, that I still sometimes wonder if I acted too quickly. But we've made peace with it, as much as anyone can make peace with unresolvable trauma. One evening in '53, we're in my study, drinking whiskey, and James says something that changes my understanding of everything. "Doc, you know what the worst part was? The worst moment of that whole surgery?" "I don't. Can't imagine what could be worse than the cutting itself." "The worst part was when I opened my eyes after, when I realized it was over, and I saw you sitting beside me crying. I don't understand. Why was that worse? Because I realized you'd suffered too, that saving me had cost you something, that you were carrying a burden I couldn't see." He explains how that realization made him guilty, made him feel responsible for my pain, created a cycle of mutual suffering. I was so focused on my own trauma, on what I'd lost, that I couldn't see what it did to you, what it cost you to save me. This confession, this recognition, it completes the healing process that started years ago. We talk about operator syndrome, about guilt that medical providers carry, about the cost of making life and death decisions. James says he forgives me, formally, explicitly. Says he understands why I did it and is grateful I did. "Doc, you gave me life, gave me a chance to meet Sarah, to have my kids, to be here now. The leg was worth that trade." Hearing him say it after 9 years, after all the struggle, it finally releases something in me that's been clenched since 1944. I cry. Properly cry. Not the tears I shed during surgery, but cathartic release of years of held grief. James holds me, a one-legged man, comforting the surgeon who took his leg. Friendship coming full circle. After that night, we're closer than ever before.
the trauma transformed into a bond, the wound healed into a scar that strengthens rather than weakens. James becomes an advocate for disabled veterans, works with amputee support groups, uses his experience to help others. He tells them about the surgery, about the pain, but also about survival, about rebuilding, about living a full life despite loss. And he always mentions me, always says his friend saved him, always credits our friendship for giving him strength to adapt. I'm humbled by it, by his resilience, by his ability to transform trauma into purpose.
The decades pass. We age together. Our children grow up as friends like we did, continuing the connection. James becomes grandfather in 71, proudly holds first grandchild, shows her his prosthetic leg, and tells her about the war. She's too young to understand, but she'll grow up knowing Grandpa sacrificed for his country, that he's a hero despite or because of his disability. I retire from medical practice in 75, 55 years old, ready to slow down, spend more time with Eleanor and grandchildren. James retires same year. We joke that we started together and we'll finish together. Navy buddies to the end. We start traveling, fishing trips, baseball games, enjoying the retirement we both survived to reach. The amputation becomes story we tell, a cautionary tale about war, but also story about friendship, about sacrifice, about survival. Young doctors sometimes ask me about field surgery, about operating without resources, about making hard decisions. I tell them about James, about the storm, about cutting my best friend's leg while he screamed. Tell them that medicine isn't always clean or clinical, that sometimes it's brutal necessity, that saving life can look like torture. Tell them that if they can't handle that, can't accept that burden, they shouldn't be surgeons. But I also tell them about the aftermath, about healing both patient and relationship, about the fact that James and I are still friends 70 years later. Tell them that the hard decisions are worth it, that saving life justifies the trauma, that you carry the weight so patient doesn't have to. James speaks to veteran groups, tells his story from the patient perspective, describes the surgery from the other side. He's honest about the pain, about the trauma, about the initial hatred he felt toward me. But he's also clear that I saved him, that the amputation was necessary, that he's lived full life because I made hard choice. His testimony, his public acknowledgement, it validates decisions I've questioned for decades. Eleanor dies in 83, after 50 years of marriage, leaving me bereft, adrift without an anchor. James and Sarah support me through grief, James especially understanding loss because he lost part of himself on my table. Doc, I know what it's like to lose something you can't replace, to wake up and feel absence where something used to be. His empathy, earned through his own suffering, helps me process loss. You saved my life so I could have 50 more years, so I could raise my family, so I could be here now for you. The symmetry of it, the reciprocity, it shows that hard decision in 44 created ripples that reached 8 decades later. Sarah dies in 83, complications from diabetes, leaving James a widower, old men who survived war, survived peace, survived loss. We spend more time together, two veterans reflecting on long lives,
on choices made, on prices paid.
The 1990s bring health problems. We're both in our 70s, bodies wearing out, but spirits intact. James needs a hip replacement. Ironic considering the leg he lost, but the prosthetic changed his gait, wore out his hip. I accompany him to the hospital, sit with him before surgery, hold his hand like I did on the destroyer. Nervous, Doc. Don't like hospitals. Don't like surgeries. Wonder why. Gallows humor. Coping mechanism we both developed. The surgeon comes to brief him. Young man, 40 years old. Explains the procedure. James asks, "You ever do surgery on your best friend? You ever have to hurt someone you love to save them?" The surgeon says no, looks confused by question. "Then you don't know what surgery really costs. This old man here, he knows. He paid that price." After surgery, James, recovering well, tells me something he's never said. "Doc, I need to tell you, I'm glad it was you. Glad you were the one who did it." "What do you mean?" "If it had been a stranger, some random Navy surgeon, I don't think I could have survived. I'd have felt mutilated, violated. But because it was you, because I knew you loved me, because I saw you crying while you cut, I knew it meant something. Knew it wasn't casual, wasn't just medical procedure, but sacrifice, friendship, willing to bear burden of hurting me." This understanding, after 46 years, it reframes everything, gives meaning to trauma we both carried. "You're saying the fact that it hurt me too, the fact that I suffered cutting you, that helped you survive?" "Yeah, Doc, exactly that. Your pain validated mine, showed me the amputation wasn't casual medical decision, but desperate act of love." I'm crying, old man tears, understanding finally why James forgave me, why our friendship survived. It wasn't despite the pain I caused him, it was because I shared that pain, because I carried the burden with him. Medical detachment would have been easier, professional distance would have protected me, but also would have traumatized James more. By crying, by showing emotion, by letting him see what it cost me, I made the amputation bearable for him. The realization transforms how I think about that surgery, about medical practice, about cost of compassion. James and I make a recording, oral history for a local museum, telling the story of the amputation from both perspectives. Future generations will hear it, understand what war demanded, what friendship endured, what survival required. The interviewer asks if we have regrets. James answers first, "I regret the war, regret the circumstances, but I don't regret that Doc saved me. Don't regret losing the leg if the alternative was death." My turn. "I regret causing him pain, regret every second of that surgery, but I don't regret saving him. Don't regret making the only choice possible." The recording captures our voices, aging but strong, testament to survival, to friendship, to choices made under impossible circumstances. I'm 94 years old now. James is 93. We've both exceeded normal life expectancy by considerable margin. James jokes that losing the leg added years to his life, that lighter body weight reduced cardiac strain, that I accidentally extended his lifespan. Dark humor, but probably not entirely wrong. He's healthier than many two-legged men his age.
We're both in assisted living now. Same facility, rooms down the hall from each other, continuing the proximity we've maintained since childhood. Every morning, we have coffee together, 77 years after we had coffee in the ward room of USS Fletcher. We talk about everything, family, politics, baseball, but always circle back to that surgery, that defining moment of our relationship. Doc, you know what I think about sometimes? What if you'd refused? What if you'd said no? Get another surgeon. You'd have died, James, no question. Gangrene would have killed you before we reached port. I know, but I mean, what if there'd been no surgeon at all? What if I just died on that table? Then I'd have lost my best friend in 44, instead of having him here now, 77 years later. Was it worth it, Doc? Was all the pain, all the trauma, all the years of guilt, was it worth it? I look at him, 93 years old, father of 4, grandfather of 9, great-grandfather of 3, living legacy of that amputation. Yeah, James, it was worth it. Every second of cutting, every year of guilt, all of it was worth having you here now. He nods, satisfied. The question he's asked in different ways for 77 years, finally answered definitively. I think so too, Doc. I think so too. We're the last of our generation. Last surviving crew from USS Fletcher. Last witnesses to battles we fought, to friends we lost. But we're also testament to survival, to friendship that endured worst possible test, to decisions made in desperation that turned out right. The amputation defined us, both of us, in different ways. But it didn't destroy us, didn't end friendship, didn't prevent long lives. Instead, it strengthened us, taught us about sacrifice, about trust, about carrying burden together instead of alone. I'm old now. James is old. We're approaching end of long lives, but no regrets, no resentment, just gratitude. Gratitude that I had the skills to save him, gratitude that he survived to forgive me, gratitude that we've had 77 years together after that terrible day. This is my confession. 77 years after amputating my best friend's leg, about the surgery that saved his life and nearly destroyed our friendship. The war demanded impossible choices, put surgeons in impossible situations, asked us to hurt people we loved in order to save them. I made that choice, took that burden, carried that weight, and I'd do it again. Wouldn't change anything, except maybe the pain I caused. James survived, lived a full life, raised a family, became a man worthy of the sacrifice his leg represented. And I learned that friendship isn't just about shared joy. It's about shared suffering, about being willing to hurt someone to save them, about carrying burden together. We're old now, near the end, but we survived, both of us. And that survival was worth every moment of pain, every year of guilt, every difficult conversation. The amputation happened, can't be undone, but it led to this, to 2 old men having coffee, to a friendship that lasted 87 years, to a life that was saved and lived fully. That's my story. That's my testimony. That's what I want remembered when I'm gone. the surgeon who cut off his best friend's leg, and the friend who forgave him.